Hello, outdoor enthusiasts. My name is Josh Gershell, and this is The Outsiders, a podcast all about the rise and rise of your CMO's favourite media channel, Out of Home. You may have noticed someone is missing at the moment. That's right, my brother from another mother, Sal Daoud, is busy absolutely conquering the world of Out of Home from Dubai, so I'm flying solo at the moment. But I did have to get back on the mic because something special is happening as I record these very words. That's right, we are in the final countdown to the Super Bowl. And for those of you who don't know what the Super Bowl is, it's time to get an internet connection. Look, I wanted to take a few moments to talk about the Super Bowl and how it is intrinsically linked to our beloved media channel of Out of Home. But before I do so, I have a bit of a confession to make. You see, I have gotten seriously into American football over the past 12 months, much to the dismay of my dear wife. Poor thing, she thought she was marrying a musical theatre-loving mummy's boy with a total ambivalence towards any form of competitive ball sport. And for 12 years, she was right. She had it pretty good, whilst many of her friends' husbands spent weekends watching the sports ball, talking about the sports ball, and having their subsequent moods dictated by the outcome of said game of sports ball. I was an entirely tuned-in presence at home, unfazed by the wide world of sports ball. That was until last year when I watched the Dallas Cowboys documentary. No, not the one about the cheerleaders, although I did watch that one too, but for the record, it was with my wife. I'm not a total creep. No, I'm talking, of course, about the other one, the one about their founder, Jerry Jones, and the world-conquering chaos of the 1990s Cowboys. You see, for 8 episodes, I was completely transfixed and transported to a time where I indeed did care about sports, and that time was my childhood. I was overcome by the power of nostalgia, reminiscing on a time when virtually all I wore was Dallas Cowboys paraphernalia, and all I watched each weekend was the Rick Moranis football classic Little Giants on VHS. But it wasn't just the cultural currency of the Cowboys that was reactivated within me. I found myself floored by the sheer pace and untamed aggression of the game itself. You see, sport is the ultimate source of unscripted drama, and I was reminded of how unpredictable, overblown, and undeniably American this particular sport could be. So over the past year, as my wife would invariably fall asleep at night within the first 15 minutes of any show featured within our very small content Venn diagram, I found myself scandalously switching over to Disney Plus, where I would surreptitiously select the ESPN button and elect to watch a bunch of bulked-up buffheads play a really intense game of chasey. Over the course of 2025, American football became literally all I watched. I started supporting a team, the Bills, for the record, and even found myself getting up early in the morning to watch playoff games. What the fuck was happening to me? What had I become? And more so, what was I becoming? Was I about to buy myself a Jeep Wrangler, start wearing my hat backwards, and hanging out with dudes named Corey, Tanner, and Chad? Look, this existential crisis is just a long-winded way of me saying I'm fucking excited for the Super Bowl. But the truth is, I'm fucking excited for the Super Bowl every year, but for a vastly different reason. Whilst this year I am genuinely invested now in the 2014 rematch between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks, in previous years it has been something very different that has driven me to this big game, that has driven many with a rudimentary interest and understanding of the rules of American football to this big game. The ads. The ads are what draws us. Thanks to the majesty of the interwebs and the power of the YouTubes, the Super Bowl has become more about the ads than the abs, at least here in Australia. Teasers are dropped online weeks beforehand, followed by endless recaps and rankings of the best ad spots by every possible online publication, from Variety to Vogue. This year, advertisers will spend $8 million on average for a 30-second Super Bowl spot and pump millions more into the production, the talent, music rights, and supporting campaign media buys, meaning the total cost per spot can range between $12 to $20 million or more. With a projected reach at around 127 million across all broadcast and streaming platforms, that's an effective CPM of $157.50, which is fairly eye-watering. But brands don't invest to this astronomical level for simple one-plus broadcast reach. They invest to align with a premium, culturally dominant global moment. The illustrious Super Bowl spot has become a pseudo-status symbol for advertisers everywhere, marking their category dominance or emerging ambition, cementing them within an exclusive cohort of brands that can and will chuck this kind of cash around for a singular sporting alignment. But that is only half the story. See, brands could simply run regular brand spots in the Super Bowl, securing an audience of hundreds of millions for their BAU comms. But they elect to create something bespoke, outlandish, and over-the-top executions that sit outside of their regular content strategies. They use a myriad of celebrities, this year from George Clooney to Octavia Spencer to Post Malone, and enlist Hollywood A-list directors from Taika Waititi to Yorgos Lanthimos to bring these wild and wacky visions to life. Creative teams literally spend up to 12 months conceiving, ideating, writing, and producing these spots, all with the intention of maximizing audience attention and driving mass shareability and engagement pre- and post-match. They don't just create TVCs for the Super Bowl. They craft carefully optimized viral vehicles. I have literally watched most of this year's ads before the game's first punt has even aired, with many of these ads serving as content launchpads for broader multi-channel campaigns spanning well beyond the big game itself. As a result of this overblown investment of creative energy, time, and money into Super Bowl advertising, something strange happens in the first week of February each year. Something entirely detached from our regular reality. Something quite magical. For a brief period at the end of the NFL season, people around the world actually want to watch ads. Which brings me to possibly the worst idea I have ever had in a long, storied history littered with terrible ideas. You see, several years ago, I pitched the idea of creating a TV channel that was exclusively running ads. I was going to call it Ad TV. Whilst I was virtually laughed out of the room by the recipients of my groundbreaking genius and/or supreme stupidity, I think that the Super Bowl is evidence that this idea somewhat has merit, for the Super Bowl is clear evidence that the most effective and impactful advertising, by definition, is designed fundamentally to entertain. As the original madman Howard Luck Gossage famously said back in the 50s, people don't read ads, they read what interests them, and sometimes it happens to be an ad. Sure, the basis behind all advertising is fundamentally to sell more shit. But the only way for brands to capture enough mental availability and secure a semblance of memorability within the audience's sphere of consideration is to genuinely entertain and be genuinely memorable. Consumers, otherwise known as people, are inundated with a myriad of messages amongst the chaos of common life. We simply don't have nearly enough time, nor headspace, nor care factor to pay attention to your bland, boring brand. But when brands create a piece of art, investing time and money into something with standalone merit beyond, but not to the exclusion of their brand message, audiences reward that investment with their own time and, hopefully, money. It's not that the Super Bowl itself has some unique distribution mechanism or consumption experience. Sure, yes, it's a collective spectacle, but so was King Charles' coronation, and I didn't see Ridley Scott directing any ads for that pompous affair. The reason the Super Bowl has become synonymous with its ads is because of the ads themselves, because of the care and creative vision invested in them to ensure they are not just noticed, but genuinely wanted by the audience. Advertisers that can afford to feature in the Super Bowl understand the cultural equity and powerful reach of this platform, so are actively invested in ensuring their communication capitalizes on this moment by driving talkability and cut through at all costs. This has turned the Super Bowl into a lean-in advertising environment. People are excited and electing to watch both within and outside of the broadcast, actively consuming brands' messages simply because the messages are worth consuming in and around this forum. As Sir John Hegarty, founder of creative agency BBH, says, when people are enjoying themselves, they're not resisting your message. But it's not only the 60 years of Super Bowl ads that proves the value of advertising as entertainment. This principle of proactive engagement through heightened creative quality has always been entrenched by the world's oldest and original advertising format, my mate, out of home. When it comes to driving ROI from investment in out-of-home, research has shown that at least 41% of ROI is driven by the quality of the creative itself. This is because out-of-home doesn't interrupt the content, it is the content. It's public space art that just so happens to be sponsored by a brand, passively consumed by the audience, placing the onus squarely on the advertiser's creative craft in order to attract attention and convert to consideration. At its most effective and impactful, great out-of-home compels the consumer to take notice through sheer unavoidable impact, distilling complex concepts into smart 7-word soundbites and immersing audiences within a brand's distinctive identity. Much like the modern-day Super Bowl spots, great out-of-home should be designed not only for reach, but for engagement, prompting audiences to immediately capture the content and distribute their appreciation across social platforms. In the absence of a clear commitment to craft and creativity, out-of-home becomes glorified wallpaper that nobody asked for. But when brands view their communication as more than a mere sales vehicle, but as an art form itself, they elevate their brands and build further trust by offering value in exchange for eyeballs, by prompting active attention as opposed to avoidance, by inviting audiences to partake in a non-intrusive exchange that actually rewards participation. Basically, out-of-home is the Super Bowl of media broadcast to the masses 365 days a year. The meteoric rise of the Super Bowl ad and the equity it now assumes within the cultural zeitgeist is proof that when advertisers create something worth consuming, the medium itself becomes the message, and attention is earned, not bought, despite the hefty price tag. Irrespective of the medium, advertisers must adopt this approach when designing their creative to stand out from the ever-increasing sea of sameness. It doesn't mean you have to have Elijah Wood dressed up as a Skittles unicorn. Just anchor your ads in compelling consumers, otherwise known as fucking humans, to take notice and give a shit. Whether it's organically integrating your message into our world through out-of-home, or relentlessly popping up while I'm trying to read an article about Harry Styles' 15 best hairy styles, make it entertaining. Make it fun. Make me look up. Make me stop scrolling. Make me care. Make me incapable of ignoring this piece of valuable brand communication that you have paid to create and disseminate, so that you may ultimately enter my consciousness, if only for a brief moment, but maybe just enough to make me think about buying some of your shit one day. And isn't that what it's all about? I'm Josh Gurgel. Have a great day, and go Bills.